Zach, last week I went ahead and picked our thought to get lost in. Why don't you get to give us a thought that we can wander around in for a little bit here?
Yeah, we can continue on the thought of what does it mean to be sort of what is success in athletics? Because I think this thought comes around how does like MVP voting get done? How do you become a Hall of Famer? How do we define success for an athlete, for a team, things like this? What does it mean to be successful?
Absolutely. That's a great topic, and I think one that's going to be relevant for our back half segment here as well. And one that I think I will just come at the front gate of it with. I think that it's got to be, when we're talking about success, whose success are you talking about? And is it like that, the general public like notion of like, oh, championships and that sort of thing? Or is it, because there are...
Is it possible, can you separate them?
Oh, interesting. So I would say, yeah, there is a personal success, like that player to player, coach to coach, like the individual who is participating in sport can define whatever their personal idea of success is, because, while LeBron James and Nikola Jokic are championship or bust, I must be the greatest athlete in the world type mindset, there are some guys who are like, if I make the 53-man roster this year on special teams, that will be a huge accomplishment for me.
Yeah, I think the personal success is a thing, right? But when we're looking at how do we, I guess, objectively quantify what success is for sports?
Sure, and that has been a challenge for sports fans throughout all of history, which is, I think, part of the reason why baseball is the sport that I would say is the most littered with various statistics and whatnot that you can try and quantify and do the data analysis on the raw numbers of a performance to try and find like that way, which has resulted in like a change to the sport, like because of how much data we've been analyzing the last like 15, 20 years or whatever. Hitters have changed how they approach, like they're looking at hitting angle and like launch velocity and all that now a lot more closely.
So let's say, let's take this for this example. So the MLB, right?
Mm-hmm.
Let's say we have all these statistics and whatnot on personal stats, though. Let's say we have someone who is an incredibly, like statistically, just a god. So let's say someone like a Mike Trout, and let's put him on a terrible team like the Los Angeles Angels.
Mm-hmm.
Should he be considered for an MVP, even though his team success
he can't single-handedly affect the team's success? Yeah, I mean, and that's going to vary sport to sport as well, because as we've discussed, certain leagues are more designed to allow for individual impact on a game or on a season to that level. Like I would say basketball, it's a little easier for one person to dominate than it in a 5v5 game than it is in a 9v9 in baseball.
I would agree, but like if we look at it, there are some places, like we talked about a pitcher, for instance, where you can have a pitcher is someone on a baseball field who can completely control the game,
start to finish. Yep.
Just like it's the same thing with the quarterback on an NFL field. Basketball and hockey are each a little bit different because you can,
and it's position by position, game by game. Like there is discussion. Who has the hardest job in sports? Is it hockey goalies? Is it starting pitchers? Is it NFL quarterbacks? And there's arguments to be made for all of those spots. Does that mean that like a running back could never be the greatest football player of all time? Very tough to, and that's why I think my personal, like this, going to the philosophical level of this question, I personally don't think that there is a unanimous definition of sports success that we can set on a stage, say these are the qualifications for success, and that everyone across the board would agree on. I think there's always going to be some sort of like personal biases and like that sort of thing that people bring to it, that which is why there are like different breakdowns of
yeah, I don't disagree with that, but
it
becomes a problem, right, when we have sort of these award voting for deals. So it's not as much as like, it's pretty easy to tell who wins a Golden Glove, Silver Slugger. Those are purely statistics, but we're talking
you can look at the numbers pretty
we're talking about who deserves the MVP award, who deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. Should there not be qualifications on how those
what the benchmarks are, whatever?
Correct.
That I think there is definitely some discussion that could be had, especially because we are going to be witnessing, a lot of these newer leagues like PWHL and stuff don't have a Hall of Fame yet or anything. So they will have to kind of come up with what their definitions are. But there is, I mean, when you start doing those sorts of honors at the beginning, you are, whether intentionally or not, setting a sort of benchmark. And I think that's kind of the best way we can go off of it for the most part, is just sort of measuring based on what we have measurements of before, until someone comes along and like breaks all of our measuring sticks.
So let me give you, I'm going to give you two different players here. These are two actual players.
Yep.
One who has had significant individual success, statistically just an absolute beast, probably one of the best players in the league ever.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's another player, not significant. He's not insignificant statistically, but he has the most championships ever. He is not better than the guy without it, but he has far more championships than everyone else.
Mm-hmm.
Should they be considered, are they allowed to go to the same place?
Are we having a Manning Brady discussion here?
No, these are, so the players I picked out are Carmelo Anthony, who we know here in the Denver area.
Yep.
There's no doubt he's top 75 NBA player all time. And then if I took Robert Horry, who's another NBA player, he has 7 championships to his name across his time in the career, which is more than even Jordan himself, which is a lot. Mm-hmm. But he's not a superstar player like Carmelo was sort of ever-ish, but he played he did really well at what he did, we'll say.
Yeah, and I think that is for sure an element where someone who's uninitiated or unfamiliar with basketball would maybe look at that, like you could lay out their numbers and be like, oh, well, this guy does, a lot of these numbers good, but this one has 7 championships, so he must be better. Or like he clearly was a valuable player in his time. And versus, someone who is more familiar with the game can maybe discern for themselves, like, yeah, Melo is more valuable to a team's success than who's the other guy? Robert Horry. There you go. So yeah, that's kind of dependent on the education and investment level of the observer.
So the weird thing is, right, unfortunately, sports, and this leads to another thought, is like the way I view sports and the way you view sports are just different, just by as human nature,
as it is between every individual. So like we all come to it with our own
what I value is
and
different. Maybe I value what Melo does, like you said, does a little bit more than Robert Horry. But if maybe you value what Robert Horry does more than what Melo ever did, because he clearly got the championship. He was doing something right.
Yeah, and then there's like regionalities and fandoms involved. Like I begrudgingly discuss Tom Brady's achievements because I'm not a Boston fan, just in general. While he did accomplish a lot, and maybe that's not the best example, but like there was like some Detroit Red Wings, only a couple of which I will acknowledge had good careers and whatnot, because I hate the Red Wings from that era. Less so nowadays, and they have fewer players to put in that category, so we don't have to worry about it as much anymore.
The thought of this is like it becomes a problem for everyone involved. One, because nowadays there's like incentives tied to this, I think, for every sport. But also, if you get a vote and I get a vote,
and we're coming at it from completely different angles, do these votes count the same and whatnot?
Is there ever a way that we can agree on?
I will for sure 100% say I'm with you, like that this is an issue when it comes to like MVP voting and things of that nature. Like we have the thing where Ichiro didn't get the unanimous vote for his first year of eligibility, and everyone's like, okay, you're just being kind of a jerk about your vote if you're not acknowledging that one of the all-time greats of the game deserves to be in on this one. The MVP voting that we know about in the NBA for the last few years has very much been like, well, who's due for the honor? Not necessarily, it doesn't actually have to do with, like, you do have to be playing well that season to even be in the conversation, but like we said, Jokic kind of got his third one as like a makeup for the year he didn't get it from Embiid. SGA kind of felt like this one was a makeup for last year when they gave it to Jokic when he needed a makeup one. And it's like, okay, and now are we even talking about the same year anymore, or is this like a list of guys we think needs the award that we're just kind of checking them off the list?
Maybe the answer is these awards are dumb, right? Like, how do we
very subjective.
Measure who's the most valuable? I mean, there are some ways we can measure
Yeah.
value of a player to a team. There are statistics like that, and the guy who, like you said, this for my NBA team didn't win the most valuable player because he was not on the best team at the time. So be it. But
Yeah.
is it worthwhile to have these sort of awards around? Especially this talk is more relevant now because, like I said, there are incentives and money tied to these things. Granted, it's for some of these dudes, it doesn't really matter if you because it's millions
Yeah.
of dollars for some of these dudes who have million dollar contracts, which is just like whatever.
Yeah, it's absolutely wild. I think it's good to be having the conversations about, who has been the best this year. I think for making people maybe a little happier or feel like there have been more players acknowledged, maybe you don't. I think the biggest problem to me was specifically like MVP award. We don't have a everyone's on the same page with what valuable means. Is it the best player on the team with the most wins? Is that player the most valuable? Or is it the player who gave his team the most wins despite like if you are on a good player on a bad team, did you improve your team more than other players would have in that spot type of thing? That's where I think that you can get maybe a little bit more granular instead of saying most valuable, like just say most wins added or something, most best performance. I don't know. Maybe it's just getting more specific with the wording and having a few more of them to give out. Does that devalue it? Probably a little bit to some people's eyes, but it's easier to maybe defend. Like you won't have to feel weird about defending an MVP choice, like because there's always been some controversial MVP choices too throughout the years. One of Peyton's was very controversial. It was stolen
I
from
mean,
Drew
in the
Brees.
NBA voting, there's always like the media. If you have like if you're a local coverage, you always include your local guy there, even if he's like the third or whatever. So you get random dudes all
Yeah.
the time getting MVP votes who potentially don't deserve them because they're kind of throwing them away.
Yeah, for sure. So, I mean, yeah, it's a great question. Like, I was kind of getting around to the way we discuss who is best is probably not the best for trying to act because best at what is probably the question. There probably will never be a consensus on overall just best, period. But you can get more granular into like best offensive, best defensive. This guy was the best rebounder of all time. Those sorts of things, I think it's easier to land on. And then once you have like a handful of those guys, you can kind of just it becomes more of a telling of what you value in the sport for who you say is best versus whether or not that's actually true or not. I think that's where the exercise gets into, but that's maybe not necessarily a healthy place to be posting monetary
Yeah, so
rewards.
if we even took that idea right, so we kind of if you have like we kind of know like these guys are special. We're gonna kind of lump them together. We can find more guys like this. I think this is what this should be about, right? But now, let's face, for instance, you have someone who just completely breaks the mold. We'll say Wayne Gretzky, for instance, and say, this is, wow, this is a something. If we can get more of this guy, and then...
Hard to argue in hockey,
and then you say, all right, let's find some more people like this dude. There isn't anyone
no one else
like this guy. Like, then how do we go back, right?
For sure. I mean, I think that's also the thing that we have to remember. We are only living in the part of history that we are aware of, and like that is a thing from baseball. There was a lot of talk in the old days of, oh, you hadn't seen this guy play, and he played the game a completely different way.
Me and you are born at a weird time, right? So we've seen, you particularly more than I have seen transitions of sports, like going from, if we go from hockey, from the way it was played before the 90s, the early 2000s to the 2010s to how it's played now is very different. Same in basketball, is so drastically different. How it's played in the 80s and the 90s is almost assault at some level. The 2000s is a little bit less different, and now we're sort of in this new modern era of football. You've seen the evolution of everything's revolving around the running back who's getting the MVP all the time to now this dude we can replace him at a whim. He's no brings
Yeah.
almost no value to the team for the most part. He's easily replaceable. To now, the QB is the dude who everything is based around. It's weird to see.
Hmm.
I think it's hard to define success, at least objectively, without being aware of sort of, at least moderately aware of all the things that have like gone on. Yes.
The history. Yeah, yeah. Because you also have to start. I mean, you'll get into discussions of eras, no matter what sport you're talking about: basketball eras, NFL eras, hockey eras, because the game has significantly changed over the years due to certain players coming in, certain rule changes, the intention of how the game is meant to be played. So yeah, all the discussion. I mean, this is a classic one in basketball of, oh, would the hot players of this day have lasted in Jordan's era or in Bird's era or whenever era back when it was a completely different rule sets? And it's like, no, but the league
it's a
wasn't
completely
designed
different
that way.
game by this time. So if we go
Yeah.
back to the original question, is like, how can we define what success is in sports? If we just sort of step away even from like sort of the MVP of what the best conversation, can we and I'm putting we as like the viewers and
A general consensus.
say what success means? And I think I have to come back to no, because unfortunately we are all viewing this with a different perspective.
Yes, I think that is the landing point we will come to, is that as much as we like to be a consensus we of sports fans, of sports enjoyers, that we is made up of too many individuals to come to a collective, yes, this is success.
And then what do we do with the awards that are surrounded by the word success? So Hall of Fame and the MVP and other things that go around, like there's some people who are not in Hall of Fames for a number of reasons that
For
should
sure.
technically be there by whatever statistical or whatnot. Then
So very specifically, there are a couple of baseball players who have gotten into the headlines recently about this very exact situation, who on the field, their performance was warranted of being in these halls of honor, but their personal actions off the field resulted in those bodies not choosing to honor them. And some people want to change that now in a sort of, as they say, the punishment for the crime has been paid or whatnot in years. But like I said, I think that's the biggest thing in these group discussions of success, is that what it reveals is more about what we in the consensus value about the sport, and which is why there is disagreement and a lack of consensus on it. But it's a thing that I would say a lot of, if you're a real diehard about your team, you will have players that um, don't get the media attention, or like don't have the big contracts, but are like playing their heart and soul out, and you consider them, like the glue guys that we have touched on before, the Aaron Gordons, the Danny High Notes, the Logan O'Connors,
the Jack Johnsons,
the Christian Browns, these guys who, are doing everything you want for as a teammate, as a player, as someone who's representing your town, your team, and they will never be regarded as some of the best players of all time or anything, but they mean something special to you, to your team. So those are and I think that's the beauty of sports too, is that everyone has that different relationship to it. Everyone is bringing their own personal biases into it. So, but because of that multidimensionality, we probably will never have agreed upon best number one overalls except Wayne Gretzky. That's the takeaway, right?
Takeaway.